these things are? Okay. Do you want to wait, or should we just go ahead and start? Hello, everyone. Did you have a question? Okay. Well, we're going to get started today for this Wiki Mania roundtable because we have a lot of experts with us today, and they have a lot to share. And then after the presentation, we're going to open the floor up for discussions, questions, and all that fun stuff. We have Roger McHaney with us today, Angela Chauncey, Dr. Bronwyn Fees, Linda Yarrow, and Dave Bollman. And they're all going to talk about wikis. Some of them are using wikis to teach, while others are using it in their office for project management or documentation. We'll just let them talk, and then at the end we'll ask questions. So just save your questions till the end. All right, without further ado, Roger.
All right, well, thank you for having me here today, and I think we should qualify the title of expert a little bit, at least for myself. I don't know about the rest of our esteemed panel, but it's more like those of us who have used this a few times and have been trying to do something interesting with it. At least that's my perspective. And for some unknown reason, it seems as though Wiki Wave has sort of inundated me recently for a couple reasons. One, I've started using some wikis in class, but I've also been involved in a wiki project with Shaolin, which has recently been made public and has started getting a group of users involved, and I'll talk about that in just a minute. But just to give you a little bit of an overview, first of all, the word wiki is a Hawaiian term that means quick or fast, and the idea is that people can quickly and rapidly update websites from a collective sense. In other words, in the past when you had a website, you had to go through a tedious editing process and create a bunch of source code perhaps and upload things and do all these steps that resulted in kind of a time-consuming and tightly controlled process. The wiki idea is that there's a group of people who are all perhaps equally qualified to make updates to the website, and so rather than have it depend on one person's expertise, why not open it up and make it easy to edit and change and allow a whole community of users to come in and do the changes. And so the idea of wiki is really that you have a sophisticated, or at least somewhat of a technically aware group of people that can work together to create something that's better than an individual could create on their own. And so that's kind of where these wikis, or what the idea of wiki might be thought to be. Wikis work by, first of all, setting up this collective or group website and then either inviting users or opening it up to the public. So there's a couple different kinds of wiki sites. Of course, if you open a wiki up to the public, you have a lot of issues to consider, like spam, vandalism, issues of people putting their own personal material out there that maybe is for a purpose other than what the wiki's set up for. If you have a semi-private or a wiki that's set up for a particular group of people, like many of us have done for our classes, then you invite only certain users to that and give them particular privileges that allow them to either edit, change, or modify the wiki in some sort of way according to the rules or guidelines that you have in place. So that's just a little about the background of wikis. There's really a couple different kinds of wikis as well in terms of how they're implemented. First, there's wiki websites like this wet paint one that's up on the screen right now. This is a company really that creates wiki space for users, and at the expense of putting advertisement out there and other types of things that allow them to create a revenue stream, they invite you to create accounts and set up your wiki there. Another type of wiki is one where you download or acquire some perhaps open source software like MediaWiki, and you install it on your own server and then use that particular server to create your own wiki site, and that's what we did with Elate Wiki. So that's a little more complicated, but it gives you full control over the wiki, and it creates a database repository of material that is in your possession and not located on some server farm that's outside of your control. So with that in mind, let's take a look at a couple of things that we've been doing here in wikis, and I'll kind of start out the panel by showing a couple of instances of what I've been doing, but mine comes from the perspective that right now the business world, and I teach in the College of Business. So the business world is starting to use wikis more and more to record work procedures, job descriptions, policies, things that people have learned in different projects that they may have worked on. So in the past, a lot of this knowledge was sort of maintained by an individual. It was passed on by word of mouth, maybe through mentorship or things like that. But now more and more it's becoming important to create kind of a corporate knowledge base, so to speak, of implicit types of knowledge that perhaps in the past couldn't be easily recorded. And this is because of the collaborative group way that wikis work. So my first attempt at using wikis has been just to encourage students in an online course, Management 366, to make use of some wiki technology to study for exams in there. So this is kind of a first exposure to wikis for many of them. And in the past, I used to just send them hints for an exam and said, you know, we're having an exam coming up, study these notes and do the best you can on the test. What I decided I wanted to do was to encourage them to collaborate and study with each other, since they're on a distance course. They don't really have somebody next to them to study with, so I thought this might be a venue to encourage their interaction and get them working together a little bit. So I posted a skeletal set of notes out on this website under, and you can see the first exam one. Initially it started as just like, I think it was 18 points I thought they should study. And then I asked the students to go out, work together, and create and fill in this outline. And the first time I did this was several semesters ago now, so this has been going on. This is this semester's result. Every time it's different because I clear it out and I start over again. But they took the 18 points and they expanded it down to what they thought would be 55 points of importance or interest to them. And they expanded each one of those points by putting different things out there and writing information about that. Some of the information was good, some was maybe a little inaccurate. I tried to keep an eye on it and edit that or change it. But they even put different kinds of weird things on there, like what did I do before I was a professor at K-State? They asked what my favorite kind of books were. And I mean, just weird things that you wouldn't expect to be on an exam, but they delighted themselves in creating these sorts of things. What I found out was that some of the topics they thought were important weren't things that I thought were as important, and so I kind of went back through the material and discovered ways to improve my presentations and my presentation, because I thought if a lot of students are thinking this is important and it's important in their careers, then maybe it needs more emphasis. I also found areas where they didn't seem to understand what I had been talking about, and I was able to go back into the lectures and notes and try to improve on that as well. So this is kind of what's going on in this website. I also posted exam 2 just 2 days ago, or actually yesterday, and it went from some study points to people have started filling in a few things on there and just filling in some information and getting a little bit of study ahead. I post the notes only 2 weeks before the exam at the most, because I don't want them to have those from the beginning and only study to the test. I figure that it's better this way. So that's that website. The second one that I'll show you a little bit about is, let me tell you a little bit more about one other quick application I use in the classroom, and this is in a graduate course. In that class, I cover wikis as a particular topic, and so I do 2 things in there to help them understand wikis. First, I have them create a play wiki, a sandbox, if you will, wiki using wet paint, where they practice with wikis and create a interchange between each other in the class. This is just a way to expose themselves to wikis, get an account, try out something, and create a wiki website that maybe outsiders can use and maybe just class members do. After they get used to that, then I ask them to become members of Wikipedia and contribute some sort of a meaningful topic to Wikipedia. I find that this really motivates the students. Many of them are intimidated, but they like to feel like what they're doing in the classroom extends beyond the walls and out into the real world. So it gives them a bit of motivation for some active learning and to see what they're doing and learning become part of the real world and the body of knowledge out there. Many of their contributions get immediately erased because they aren't accurate or they don't have the proper sources or something like that. So I may ask them to go back and redo it and say, the reason it's erased is because you didn't cite it properly, or it's a way to learn and to make things more robust. I always ask them to make screen captures of what they post, because it may not be there the next day or it may be different. So that's my other in-class use of wikis. The other one that I wanted to show you was Elate Wiki, and I've been working with Shaolin and a team of people from distance learning on this. Dr. Clegg has been involved as well. And this particular website is set up to encourage people to exchange information about e-learning and teaching methodologies. This is a website that professors, instructors, and other higher education people might be interested in using. And this particular website allows you to become a member, and if you become a member, then you can contribute or use or add to the material that's out there. So you can see this page was actually released to the public 2 days ago, I think on March 23rd. We've had 1,000 visitors out there, and we've had a number of people contribute topics to the website. If I look at the topics really quickly, we can see it's divided into kind of 4 main categories at this point in time. But these are all categories and different items that have been added to the wiki in different course areas. Just to pull up an example one, blended learning, for instance, you can see the wiki provides a venue for someone to write that in an outline form and then fill in the details underneath and then add references to that. We have encouraged people to join the wiki and add areas that may be within their area of expertise and putting things together that way. So here's another example with references on there and see also and so forth. So this has been a very interesting experience because we've learned a lot about the mechanics of what is good about wikis and what's bad about wikis.
Good.
Okay, I don't want to get too carried away here and dominate this thing too much. But so what we've discovered is that people are relating to us their concerns about using the wiki. For instance, this morning, Shalin got a message from a person who is worried their IP address might be captured and used in some nefarious way by us in this website. And so there's a lot of issues that we're learning and recognizing in the future that we're going to have to address. We haven't yet had any vandals on the site, but wikis allow you to reverse any kind of entry rather easily. So if somebody puts something on that's an advertisement for their website or something that they want you to buy or something else destructive, we can immediately take that off. And by eliminating the the time that they spend vandalizing the site or minimizing that and getting rid of it immediately, they'll hopefully not do that in the future. It's also tools we may have to add to the site that prevent robotic or bots from going in and trashing up the site a little bit. But overall, we've had a number of outsiders join in the last couple days, people we don't know. We've had a number of K-State people join, and we're seeing the body of knowledge grow and change and modify every day. And it's a very interesting process because we can put something down here and watch as people from outside come in and put new things in there for us. So I think we're learning a lot. We're seeing how things are going, and we're working on it that way. There's a sheet in the back if any of you are interested in becoming members of Elate Wiki or just browsing around or using the material. It's on a piece of green paper. You're welcome to become one of our wiki people, I guess. So I'll stop here and we'll let you talk about next item. So we were thinking about doing either musical chairs or sliding the computer around, so we'll see.
Let's see how this works. Okay. Do you want to? Hi, I'm Angela Chauncey, and I work for OME, or Central IT Unit on campus, and we are using a wiki since 2005. The product's called Confluence, and we're on version 2.2.9, and we use our wiki for documentation. Okay, sorry about that. We're using our wiki to document our software projects and also to keep track of our student employees. So first I'd like to show you things we're keeping track of on our student employees. The students go to the wiki and they just enter in their own work schedule and keep this up to date. So this is really handy. We're collaborating here, and the students are keeping their own schedules up to date. So this has been a real useful tool for us. And then the other thing I wanted to talk about today is our software projects. We keep our list of all of our software projects online, and the status, the timeline, each of the roles of the team members and who's working on it. And then each project is linked off to documentation on that project. And we keep lots of documentation about the software project on our wiki site, the timelines, the important milestones, the important dates. Lots of meeting notes, which is quite an advantage of having the meeting notes on the wiki for everyone to access. They just need a browser to view the meeting notes rather than sending out the meeting notes by email or as a Word document. This is just very accessible for everyone on the team. We also, let's see, which one am I looking for? We also collaborate as a team, as a project plan, entering if we've completed a task or not. So each of the team members are continually coming in to this page and updating the status of the tasks they're working on, so we can tell who's completed what, and they can access it. It's just easily accessible to update that. We have OME is using this wiki, but we also have expanded the use, and we have a pilot group also using this wiki, including physics, admissions, current employment services, EST, the iTAC's Red Book is also hosted on this wiki site, and we're looking to add more groups as a pilot to this site. So we've found it's just really great place for documentation. We have reams and reams of documentation, lots of things to keep track of, and this has been a real great tool for us for documentation and also for collaboration, so we can all work on the same documentation at the same time. So, okay, so I'll turn over to you. Oh, okay. Sorry. Do you want?
Yeah. I'll move down.
Okay.
Let's see. Okay. Hi, my name is Bronwyn Fees. I'm in Family Studies and Human Services in Early Childhood Education and Lifespan Human Development. So the students that I work with are undergraduate students in seeking their early childhood education degree and certification as a teacher. And so I teach some of the pedagogical coursework, and then I also work with graduate students who are seeking, of course, their master's or PhD. So I'm learning to use the wiki page with both groups, and they use it just a little bit differently. I'm showing my graduate wiki, my graduate class wiki up here right now, but I'd like to start with the undergraduate course that I teach. That was my first attempt at a wiki, and truly attempt is the right word. I'm in awe, really, of what my colleagues are doing, because I am learning a lot as I'm sitting and listening to what they are presenting. But I did it initially because I wanted to find a way to capitalize on the technologically savvy students that I have, to go beyond just the lecture in the classroom, but to try to reach out into their world. So I tried the wiki so I could connect with them better, and we started with a visit to the insect zoo, and I asked the students to think about ways that they could prepare young children for visiting the insect zoo and how it related to the standards for science education. And I put that up on the wiki page, and the students then had to go in and post their ideas. And it turned out to be a wonderful way for them to share their ideas about working with young children. And they really got into it. So by the end of the unit, so to speak, we had a lot of ideas that students could share with one another. And they do go back and reference it. And so my hope, my long-term goal for using the wiki with my undergraduate students is to use it as a source for them to share their ideas in working with young children in the classroom or in any situation. And they can, as they try the ideas, they can then go back and add to them as a way of keeping an ongoing dialogue about what works well with young children in what circumstances, and what they discovered was helpful and what maybe should be avoided, to help the next students that are coming along in the course, and then ultimately as they go on to student teaching, and then maybe even as professionals. That's the big goal here, but right now it's very just limited to the class. For my graduate students, in FSHS 810, it's an online course in child development. They are spread throughout the country and throughout the world. One of the challenges for me has been that I like to have a synchronous discussion for students. So my student in Egypt had to get up in the middle of the night to get online to join the rest of the students around the world in discussing the topic at hand. Of course, that was a little bit of a challenge for her, and the connections were not always stable, and so students would be kicked off and have to come back on, and that was a little bit frustrating. So I wanted to replicate that synchronous chat in another environment. Instead of always meeting each week from 6:30 to 7:30, but to try to create that same situation, but similar to a synchronous discussion, but in an asynchronous format. I really like the Windows format that's on the boxes that come up on the message board on K-State Online, but I find that after a lot of postings, I've kind of forgotten what was at the beginning. It didn't flow, and so I thought by trying a wiki page, everything would be on one sheet of paper, so to speak, and they could all see what others were posting and add to it. So that was my motivation for using a wiki with the graduate students, and they seem to really like it. I'm in a kind of a high-touch field where not a lot of my students have, or for many of my graduate students, they have been in the field quite a bit and have not necessarily been well acquainted with technology. But I have found that there are always a few that will teach one another, and once they get the hang of it, they really like it. So it's worked out well. So what I have done is post, for example, on March 10th, I posted several questions for them. They had to include milestones for, in this case, infants and toddlers, and I required that they go in and post at least 3. Well, you can see they came up with quite a few. Some students really posted a lot, and then, of course, there were a few who did just the minimum, but they created their own site, so to speak, of developmental milestones, which they found very helpful, some of them anyway, working with infants and toddlers. That was helpful for them in their own practice. And then I tried to create a Wikipedia, but this is just a private site, so no one else can go on but the students in the course. And I put up terminology that I wanted them to be sure to understand, and then they were to go in and define and add to what others have written, and then also be sure to cite. And we're still working on the citation part, how to cite properly, but at least we've got some information up there, and I can go in, of course, and check the accuracy of it. In this case, they had to write down a child's language sample and then count the number of grammatical morphemes, so that's what that page was. And then some conversational questions about a case study that they had read in their textbook. And as I look at what they have done, they do read one another's work, they do delete, they do add, and try to sharpen or make the discussion as accurate as I think as their level of understanding. And what has been helpful for me, like in teaching online, is that I get a good sense of what students know by the words that they use, or the vocabulary that they use, or words that they don't use. So if they're not using the key terminology that's been presented to them in their texts or in their readings, the journal articles, then I know they may not either understand it or they may not have read them. So we need to go back and and make sure that they understand and use the terminology correctly. And so having it in print is wonderful because it challenges one another, the other students, to make sure that the terminology is being used in an accurate way, and stretches them to apply it when they might be shy to do so. So overall, I have found students that have really liked it. They like the flexibility. It doesn't tie them to the computer that night from 6:30 to 7:30, although the next night they will. I've gone to alternate weeks because I think that dialogue is very important in pushing and stretching the thinking of the students in the class. And the Wiki page has been a wonderful addition to the class in giving them all their words right there in front of them in one page, I guess is the best way to say it. So that's about all I have.
Do you have a picture of the insect? I mean, can you link into
My insect zoo?
insect piece?
Yeah. Let's see. I'm not a Mac user. I'm a PC user. So how do I go to the next page? How do I open another window up here? Can you? Oh. Oops.
You're shocked there.
Okay. Right there. This was my first attempt, so it was a learning process. Okay, so at the beginning, we have some pictures of insects. Then the students listed the objectives that from the Kansas State Department of Education for science and some other sources for science education. So that's what's there. And then, so that reminds, they're to be intentional, of course, about their teaching. So that reminds them of why they're doing what they're doing. And then they gave here some ideas for things to do before you go to the insect zoo to prepare children so they have a common set of experiences to draw from before they are exposed to this new environment, the zoo. So things that teachers could do, and that students added a lot of ideas there. And then what do you do when you're at the insect zoo? So that's appropriate for young children. So they listed those ideas. And then after the insect zoo, when you get back to your own classroom or home environment, what are some things you can do to follow up on that experience? And then, very important, the vocabulary that children should be associating with this experience. We want to be sure that the teachers are using appropriate vocabulary with the children. So that's what they listed here. And then some additional suggestions and ideas that they had. And then they posted some pictures at the bottom. So it's really basic. It's very basic, but it told me that the students liked this format and they went back to it repeatedly, and I thought, this would be very helpful for them and a way to share between cohorts the experiences that they have throughout our lab requirements, and then when they get to student teaching, and then as professionals in the field. So, I am. I have to go into, I believe it's updates, and then it shows me my dashboard, and then I can see by time when they posted, type, or the member. So I can look at what Amy has done by looking at her contributions. And Right here?
Well, that one's already showing.
Yeah,
Go
but
down.
this one, yeah.
That one's not. Yeah.
Yeah.
Click on that, then it shows.
Yeah. But this doesn't show all of it. I found if I click on this, I can get a picture of things that, here, in blue, not this blue, but it'll show me what she has added. Let's see what Amy added. Amy didn't add a lot. I had some who were very ambitious, and then some who were not, or less ambitious. I can't. If it on this particular site, because I used a blue font for titles, their changes show up in orange. Well, okay, I guess in blue. What they deleted and what they added. I guess for another student it came up in orange, but. So I can see what they have done, and I can get a sense of that individual student's, of course, understanding. I thought it would save me some time when I go through and read all the students' message board postings. That takes a while to do. And I thought, well, this would be a little bit easier. I haven't found it. I'm not fast enough yet. I mean, I'm still pretty methodical about clicking on the button and reading the postings. It hasn't been quite the time saver yet for me, but I think the students really like the format. I'm still learning. Okay. So.
Students see what others have done, like this person who wrote this, or is that just
Like, could Jill see what Susie posted? I'm not sure that they can they?
I found on my site that if somebody's editing their page while they're working on it,
Yeah,
they
can.
will get an email that says so-and-so just added such and such to your page, because some pages are approved for editing and others aren't. And one student emailed me and she said an hour's worth of my work is now gone because somebody else went in and edited it. And I'll show you what I did about that. So they get an email that says your page was edited.
Yeah. Yes, I've had that happen too. I've had students email me and say, I spent all evening putting up my things and somebody else deleted them. So we're working through that. Protocol for working on a wiki process. Okay. Well, you can just kick my person.
I'm Linda Yarrow, and I teach for the Department of Human Nutrition. I primarily teach distance classes. And my wiki, where's the mouse, is for my capstone clinical class. It's Clinical 2, which is their capstone nutrition class. And they do this in groups. There are 30 students in the class and all over the world, as you mentioned. Different ages. They go anywhere from age 20 to age 55. So some of them are a lot more comfortable with this than others. And they work in groups of 3. So there are 10 groups. And what I did, this is based on clinical conditions that they are dealing with this semester. This home page took me 20 minutes to develop, and all it is instructions to them. And so I spent very little time on this. One of the things that they have to do is, at a minimum, they had to tell me disease definition based on their topic they were assigned. The causes, signs and symptoms, medical treatment, dietary treatment, references. If they did that, they started it in 85. That was a B. And then points were deducted if there was misinformation, formatting was lousy, or whatever. If they go above and beyond it, then they technically start out with 100, and then points are deducted from that. And they always go above and beyond. I never had to worry about any of them doing just the minimum. They had different deadlines depending on when it showed up within the course. So under the clinical conditions, the first 5, celiac disease, GERD, cirrhosis, pancreatitis, and rheumatoid arthritis, correspond with when the first exam, what the first exam covered. So those were given a deadline, and they had to be completed 1 week prior to the first exam. The next set completed prior to the second exam, and then the third exam. The only ones that they can go in and edit are the ones that we've said, okay, these are done. Now, they don't get a lot of points for this, but they put in way more work than really for what the points they get, because they valued it as more just than earning points. So they get 25 points each for developing it, and then they get 10 points for editing the rest of the semester. And to show you an example of what they did, this is the celiac disease one. They find a lot of wonderful pictures, which I'm visual. You know, seeing diagrams makes a big difference in my learning abilities. The formatting was totally up to them. Some of them were more creative than others. Let me slide it over a little bit. They have put in YouTube videos. They're starting to put in cartoons that I've noticed. This one had a recipe in it, which the other students thought was great. The gal said, I have celiac disease, so let me share some basic, recipes. This was a pancake recipe. She's going to put in a muffin one. And the students said, with this brought up, they basically said, we want access to this after we graduate because we're going to have clients and we want to go back and find these recipes and share them with them. So they said, can you make sure that we can access this as professionals, which we can do. So you'll find those in there. Again, more diagrams. At the end, one of the things I've enjoyed the most that they've done, support groups. I work also, in addition to teaching, I'm still practicing as a clinical RD. And many times I'm going in and looking up these support groups and kind of compiling them, and I'm thinking, I don't have to do this anymore. I just need to list the clinical condition and let my students do it. And they feel good about it. And then they have to list their references. At the same time. And they use the format. Most of them, this is the third or fourth class we've had together, so they know my style in terms of references. One of the things I like about, whoops, let me get on that and move back up, that I like about WebPaint, you can get the advertising taking off. There is no advertising on here, and it was free. And that's because I am an educational site. All you have to do is notify them that it's an educational site. They state on their homepage that within a week they'll have the advertising removed. It took them about 3 weeks because I did it right at the beginning of the semester when they were probably getting requests from everybody. And they just go in and verify that you are an educational site and the advertising's gone without any cost. One of the things that has shown up now, when I mentioned the editing, what happened is the first 5, I sent out an email, said these are now approved for editing. They've been graded. You can go in and start formatting, adding things that you want. And that's when I got an email from a student that hers was number 6 and only the first 5 were approved, and she said my entire page is gone. And what you can do, and it took me a little bit to figure this out, well, maybe 15 minutes. This one doesn't scroll like mine. Get to the bottom. At the bottom of each one, you can look at the edits. Okay. Whoops, that's not what I wanted. And I can go look, let's say that this was the most recent one right here, which totally wiped out the previous student ones. I can go and just click here, and I can say, make this the current version. So I can undo everything the student did, which is what I did. Now, the first time I did it, I wiped out the whole page. Everything was gone, and my heart was pounding. I go, wow, I think I just really messed up. And I thought, no, they wouldn't make it that easy to wipe out somebody's work without fixing it. So then I calmed down and got into it and realized I just needed to start clicking on these little tabs here, and then so by making it the current version, it deletes anything done after that. And then I sent an email to the student, said, this one wasn't ready for editing, and she goes, oh, I'm sorry, I was so excited about doing this, I got carried away. And that's what I'm finding, they're really enjoying this. They're starting to put cartoons in even, which is kind of interesting. So at first they were doing the technical, the formatting, the adding the information, and now I think they're just wanting to liven things up a bit, because I went and looked and noticed that this is on gastroesophageal reflux disease. And somebody put in a little clip from a cartoon, and this one's just got a little comic strip that's in there, which is kind of fun, because education should be entertaining. And supposedly you will get an email or something to alert you if questionable content has been put on. One of our web pages has the male anatomy, and I thought, oh, I wonder if that's going to bring up a flag by the WebPaint site, but it didn't. They obviously recognized it as a medical diagram at the same time. So, and again, the pictures that they come up with, I told them, try to make sure that they're in public domain and stuff. YouTube videos, a lot of professional organizations, drug companies, teaching hospitals are putting a lot of videos out there on YouTube, and they're finding those and they're pulling those up too. Some of the comments that I have gotten from students, one of them said, I liked seeing a relatively new and unique outlet for nutrition information. I feel that information technology is going to be very important for future dietetics practitioners. This way of sharing information would be useful in classrooms, private practice, community websites, etc. I like the cohesive nature of applying previous learned knowledge with new knowledge. A lot of them commented, they had Clinical 1 last semester and Clinical 2, and they said it was fun to see how what we learned with Clinical 1 we could add to our topic for Clinical 2 and make it all merge together. This was a great review for the topics prior to the exams, and then I hope this site remains available to us as professionals. So the second set has to be due next week, and then I'll go in and I'll grade them based on criteria I made up. I'm sure my criteria are going to change as I see what students are doing. At first I thought, I don't know how I'm going to assign points, at this point, other than what I set up initially. So I'm learning, too, what I consider to be quality contributions as I see what students are able to do. And those at the beginning, kind of set the bar, and then the others try to up the bar. They're actually a very competitive group as we go along. So editing's going to get a little tougher towards the end because they're going to find it more difficult to find ways to improve it. Yes?
You brought up a point I've been curious about with this. If they're working on a project like this and you want to store it, maybe have it available, again, within the constraints of copyrights and all that, on a different setup, but not necessarily in the Wikipedia. How easy is this to store in HTML or PDF or anything like that, and then maybe move it to the KSU online site?
I'm going to let Ben answer that because every time those things come up, I email Ben and say, how do I do this?
In particular, web paint is pretty easy. You can go into one of the administrative tabs and it'll let you back up the entire site to HTML in a zip file. So at any given point in time, you can archive the entire site.
And then you can cut and paste what you built.
Yes, absolutely. You can also sign up for their premium services, which are, believe it or not, fairly inexpensive. Just a couple $100 a year. And they'll move it to a more permanent location, and they'll hold on to it, or they'll help you migrate it to your own server, including the software and everything. So if you reached a point where you wanted to keep your wiki, you could contact, most likely, OME and say, I'd like to migrate this to one of your servers. How do we arrange that? And they'll get together with you, and it'll be migrated to a K-State server where we'll be the stewards of it from that point forward.
I'm Dave Bollman, and I work for iTAC, and our job description is to support the technology classrooms. So I'm kind of going to hit it really fast on how we use it for technical support. Currently, we use a lot of students, and unfortunately, they don't stay a long time because they graduate and move on. So they have a lot of information, and then they leave, and then someone will say, oh shoot, did we ever get that information from? So what we tried to come up with was a way to extract that information from the students easily. As I said before, the wiki is a great opportunity to get the information in quickly and easily from anybody. It's not complicated web coding where only one person, the webmaster, has to do it. Anybody can do it. And so when students try to pawn off of, hey, we need some information on this, I say, go ahead and edit and put it in. So that's why we like using the wiki. We basically kind of use it as a front end to a lot of links, and that's kind of things I'm going to show you. And the screen's a little bit smaller here. As an example, we have about 1,500 pages, all the information, server IPs and maps and diagrams, everything that we can think of. And one thing we use is call letters. It's just like NATO alphabet. Does anyone know what the NATO alphabet is? Bam. Student asked me. I said, put it in. So he put it in. So this shows you can do tables. This is a link. This is actually an audio link. Tell them how to pronounce it. And now they're good to go. They now know the NATO alphabet. I was going to show pictures. We have alarms in our labs. I'm not sure how much I'm supposed to show you how this works, so don't look at the pictures too closely. But this explains, and I can put a bunch of pictures in easily. I can click on them and look and see exactly what they are. So this illustrates using pictures. And you can also insert videos. We have a whole video training section. These are actually linked into part of the other training, but if I wanted to see them all, well, they're all right here. I think this will probably use, I'm not going to, it should bring up, well, maybe not. But anyway, I'll bring up, I'm using PCs, so I'll bring up media window, or QuickTime, one of those two. This is using Apple, so I'm not sure what it's bringing up. So You can insert pictures, you can insert tables, you can insert links to audios and links to videos, which I just showed. I'm going to go back. That was in category. I'm going to go back to our main knowledge base. We have a pegboard that has all our tools. We're constantly losing tools, and I couldn't remember. There's a peg there. It's missing, but I didn't know what tool is missing, so I had a student that said, hey, write some documentation for it. I didn't even have to do it. I just told him, go do it. So he came up with his idea, and bam, now I know what tools are missing. So I'm not pulling a fast one on me and reorganizing them. I know exactly how they're supposed to be. And the beauty, again, is I didn't have to do any of this. Students did all the documentation for me. Common numbers. This is just, like I said, in our technology, we're always, I can't ever find common numbers. So it has a table of contents, facilities, the union, and some of the hotline numbers and miscellaneous numbers. Bam, it's right there. I don't have to look. Oh, another nice little thing here, it's got a link to webmail. So if I need to email this person, bam, click on it, and I can email them right there. It's all right at my fingertips because I just don't have time to look all this stuff up. Server IPs, I never keep track of server IPs. Nice thing about this is I also have links. So I need to go to it, I can click on it and go to it. Such as, no one ever knows where WebJet admin is for version 8. They're like, where am I going to find that? I said, did you check the wiki? Well, no. Okay, go to the wiki, server IP. Oh, okay, there it is. So they kind of train themselves. That's always my standard pat answer. Did you check the wiki? And 90% of the time, it's always in the wiki. And if it's not, then they put it in. One of the problems we had with using tables, I showed you one with the tables, and that's real static, and that works great. But the coding behind it, this is using Wiki Media, and the code behind it's a little cumbersome. It's not real easy to see. So a student came up on his own and said, well, what if we have a link to Google Docs? So I'm going to go to Schedules. Looking for a lab. Oh. Okay, so instead of going to inside the wiki, it's now going to link. It's going to make me log in. Okay, but anyway, it would take, I don't know if anyone's used Google Docs before, but they're all authenticated, and now it will bring up the Google spreadsheet, Excel, or a spreadsheet, and it's real easy to go in there and edit. So we're using this as a front end.
It also tells you how to log in. If you go back to your previous page,
Oh.
it tells you how to log in.
Well, yeah, okay, I guess I can log in. I didn't know how much time I had.
And I think that.
Okay, and go into and there's kind of some neat things here. We can do programming with colors. This automatically tells me clean today, what labs have to clean tomorrow. Just by, if I edit this, it will automatically change these. And this is using Google Docs. And again, the key is it's got to be easy, otherwise it doesn't get updated. And this is super easy. They're already authenticated, so just click on it, load it in, and make the changes. You can also, these are other types of files that you can link to. You can link to Excel spreadsheet. Looking for orders. So this is an actual Excel spreadsheet. The only problem with this is it's really kind of hard to edit because you can edit it, but then you have to save it, and then you have to upload the file to the wiki and change it. Again, that's quite a few steps there. If it's going to be static, then that's okay. But if it's not, we started using the Google Docs. So we kind of migrated away. It's all through trial and error, and we've decided that using Google Docs really works better for us. So I've got tables, Google Docs, Excels. You can also do spreadsheets, like forms. We use it for all our forms. Like we had a student get injured. Like someone said, well, you have to fill out the injury report. Like we had no idea what the heck that was. Well, now we do. Injury accident or incident form. And this is a PDF, so you can load up PDFs. And I think you can basically load about anything you want if you tell the Wiki server what kind of stuff you want to use for. One thing we have is in our labs we have media links, and they have configuration files that when you load up in your software on your laptop you can program the media links. But here we put it onto the Wiki. This is one of our sound systems. I don't have the software installed on here, but if I did, and I clicked on this link here, that will take me to a file. I don't know if you can see it, accurate219.sis760. It's kind of a weird extension, but my software is file type to that. So if I click on it, it'll load the software and load the link, and away I can go. Well, that kind of went faster than I thought. So basically, to kind of recap, these are the different things that we use it for. We use it for training. We use it for how to install software, and you can use it. You can create tables. You can have references to all various kinds of links, which I said, the Microsoft links, PDFs, text files, and weird ones that you need to link to, such as our configuration files. We have about 1,500 sheets in here, or 1,500 pages that we've created. We got one for images and how to create images. That's been a real big help. We have to keep track of all our software, and by doing this, well, that's it. This will be my last one. I think we have about 57 images that we have to build. And the last one I had to do was so this tells us kind of how to build the image, some of the little notes that we have to do, and then this is the list of the software. And then we have testing sheets that we can put in on what we have to check for on each one of the piece of software that we do. This has been a great help. Like I said, we have 57 or 58 images that we have to manage, and by using the Wiki and using templates, okay, time's up.
What are images?
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, we on the PCs and the different tech classrooms and studio classrooms, we take like a snapshot of what should be on that PC, and it basically is a file, and then we push the file up to the server. But to build that PC, we need to know the software that needs to go on it, and we need to know the configurations of how the software is configured, and that's what this does here. This tells us how that's done. We also have I think it was just, I'll go back to it again. So if I want to know how to install Adamus, which I don't, and I didn't find out how to install it, but if I did, right now it just tells me where the location of it is. But it could also tell me how to install the software for each one. So the whole idea is you could have someone that doesn't know a lot about it go to this wiki. They could go to the page, see the list of software they have to get, tells them where the software is, tell them how to install it. And it's been a real big help for us so far, but it just takes a lot of work to put in. So that's about all I had.
Could you click on edit and just show how easy it is to edit a page?
How easy? Okay, well, okay, just for text.
Yeah.
This is Media Wiki code. The colon's an indent. The star is the little circle, and I just type in text. And things in parentheses, that's referencing a template, and this just tells it what category. It's in my software, kind of like directory. So if I go to software directory, it'll show me all the stuff that are tied into it. The two equal signs, those are just a header. Kind of makes it bold and up at the top. And if you put, at least in Media Wiki, if you have at least 4 of these, it'll create automatically a table of contents for you.
Did you say this is Wikimedia? Is your host?
Or Media Wiki, or yeah, now you got me. Let's see, Wikimedia, Media Wiki. Okay, and that's something we're hosting on our own server, so I have a little more flexibility on what kind of like file types that I have. Like that one that was kind of weird, and I think some of the PDFs you have to tell the server to allow those kind of files to be put on your server. But if you have a tech support group, this is the only way I see it going. Get the information from the students before they move on. That's all.
Can we get our panel experts to come back and then maybe answer questions?
Go back to our original chairs, or wait. I guess I can move to the center.
Start with one, and we'll come back around to me. Okay. I think it was Audrey?
Angie.
Angela. Your wiki, what's your host on that one? Was that also Wikimedia?
It's Confluence.
Okay. And can anybody join that and like create other groups?
Yes,
Like, I have a software project that I'm working on. Can I join your wiki?
we're looking to add more people
Okay.
to our pilot, yes.
Okay.
So I can give you my contact information.
Great.
Okay.
So it's not simply just go on to your Confluence wiki and say join. You've got to contact you
Mhm.
to get your group started.
Yeah, our
You gotta
department,
set it all
yeah.
up, right?
Mhm.
Well, that somewhat addresses my question. Other than the private servers you're using for the most part, WebPaint, why that choice? And then what's the advantages of doing, say, WebPaint versus Google Docs? Because I've been seeing my students using Google Docs just on their own to collaborate. So what are the pros, cons, why the choices you made?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure the advantages or how the WebPaint works. Google Docs is I create the document and then I can share it with a group of people, and then they can have, and everyone has access to that document, and you don't have to worry about somebody overwriting. As soon as I start typing, the other person can actually see letters and changes happening. So actually, two people could be editing the same file at the same time. So I'm not.
I think Google Docs is more of like a spreadsheet word processor type application. So whereas the Wikimedia is more of a web page type application. So there is
I
some,
don't think you can put videos, can you, in Google Docs?
I don't
Like
know.
YouTube's?
Probably not, but I'm not sure.
Well, I've been told if you can do it with Office, you can do it with Google Docs.
You can make links out. They're adding new features every week. They'll add one, but you can have links out of a spreadsheet if you wanted to go to a video.
There's probably a lot of overlap between the document, actual Google Docs, the word processor part, and the wiki stuff a little bit, but it's still it's kind of a difference of a public website creation versus a collaborative document, I think.
And I like WebPaint because the editing's easier than, I mean, what he was talking about was not real complicated, but with WebPaint, I don't have to do any HTML coding at all. It's built in for me. I just, click on edit and it asks me what I want to do, and if I want a hyperlink, just click on the hyperlink button. It's very easy, which I appreciate because I don't want to learn all the coding.
Yeah, and I think some of the coding in MediaWiki is actually for a website where you have a lot of topics and you want to link them together in different ways. You can add embedded tags, and you can add other types of organizational features that WebPaint maybe doesn't have. So WebPaint's more for a specific application in a group, probably tightly controlled group, whereas MediaWiki's when you want to get into a larger, more public setting of using a wiki. So.
My brother was showing me his website on Google, and it looked an awful lot like what I created on Wiki. And he had calendars and some pages, so I don't know. I can't remember what you called that Google application. Google Sites. Google Sites. Okay, so it looks fairly similar.
Yeah.
I didn't try to create one, so I didn't.
I think one of the big things you continue to do is the script. We have a lot more security features. For example, the knowledge base that we have has login and password for our internal documentation, only people with authentication services for our site to do that. Whereas, Google Sites, that's more of a public domain, and anyone can go in and look at it.
Yeah, that's a good point. I know, like, a big concern is when you go out to Wikipedia and you have them post something publicly, what happens if they grab something and post it out there? What I find a lot of times that happens is you see other people who've done that will actually get chastised by the Wikipedia community, and they will, write a scathing note that this is stolen material and take it off the site. So, it's kind of a self-regulating mechanism in a way, but I think that, there's still some legal considerations there. And one of the reasons with Elate Wiki recently that we didn't go public for a while was because we were working on a policy, the university having a policy that would protect those who are involved with it from that very situation from happening. How do we know some unknown person, perhaps from another country, doesn't steal some material, post it out there, claim it as their own, and then we would become liable for that? So a lot of the wikis have license agreements that you agree to by using them that state you're personally accepting any liability for anything you post out there as being your original material or cited properly. So it's a bigger issue, I think, than just wikis. It's a Web 2.0 issue. So
And what about student release forms? You're required to sign anything?
I haven't yet.
Like you would for documents?
I haven't done that, but I may start thinking about it. It's a good idea, really. So.
My sites are by invitation only. I, at this point, would not open it up beyond, but those are certainly good points. I think students should be aware that if they're going to, they know right now that this is just between us, so to speak, and I can monitor, and it's a way of mentoring students and learning how to post and such. But if it were to go beyond that, I certainly would want the students to be aware of that before they start, and by signing a form, they would know that. That's a good point.
This is one of my last questions. How do you think, are y'all familiar with social bookmarking? Like Ning and Digo? How do you think wikis interact with or compare to the social bookmarking sites? I'm not talking about Facebook and MySpace, but the social bookmarking where you can like set up groups and you can put in your bookmarks, you can put in comments, you can put in notes, you can set up meetings, you can do all kinds of collaborative stuff that's it can be either private or public as well. Globally, I mean, anybody have any comments?
I can make a comment. A lot of the wiki stuff came before the social bookmarking, so you can see the underpinnings of social bookmarking in wiki stuff. For instance, MediaWiki has the tagging system that Dave was showing where you put the two brackets around something. That's almost like a term that you can tag things with, but it's not as sophisticated. So I think you're going to eventually see the wikis kind of picking up some ideas from social bookmarking and actually become a little more sophisticated. I don't think they're there yet, but it's going to happen, and I look forward to that, because that's one of the things I don't like about the wikis is that they're kind of hard to tag and to keep track of tags, and you don't have a nice cluster of tags off to the side like you see in some other sites, and I think it's coming. Probably WebPaint will be doing more of that quicker than MediaWiki, but
Thank you.
If I use Google search, can I get access from the search result for those contents posted under the wiki, just like Elate?
under Elate you can, but under the WebPaint ones that are private you can't.
We would get an email if you wanted to join. We would get an email saying who was requesting to become a member.
But not become a member, but I'm thinking if I go to Google to search the content.
Yeah, my understanding from what I read on WebPaint was if you were to put in clinical nutrition, then it's possible my site would show up and it would say by invitation only, and then you would click a link that sends me an email.
Okay, and then once I become a member, then I can access those.
Right, because mine's invitation only.
All right. How about Elate?
Elate's open to the public, so as soon as Google discovers those topics, it will be out there. And so I actually submitted it to Google a week ago, so hopefully some of the stuff will start showing up
So
out there.
it really depends on each wiki itself. You can set. But WebPaint names. You cannot have that choice. You have to come up only invitation.
No, you can open it up.
Yeah, I could open it up.
You can, oh, okay.
Yeah,
So you can
but I don't. This will be open only to those clinical students. Next year's will have a different web page, a different web page site. It'll be just to those students. Because I thought, maybe this could be a continuous project, and every semester they build. They put so much information in, there's not going to be a whole lot more to add after a couple of times through. So I want them to start from scratch, each time. And what I thought is I could always make them available after they've created theirs, say, okay, you want to see what other classes have done, because there may be some creative things done that other people didn't think of, but it would be an after-the-fact thing. And then you can still restrict their membership that maybe they can view only, but they can't make any contributions.
That's what I was going to ask you. So each class.
There's like
they would
4
still be
different
members.
levels.
And so when they go out and they're practicing, they can still see their class,
Mhm.
but not necessarily the other classes.
Right, unless I give them permission.
There's a question on the mic.
I'm a chemistry instructor. I've been using Wiki for 3 semesters now, and I've been also doing we're sort of building databases for documentation stuff using a big electronic group document way. But what I feel is the most powerful thing about Wiki is the peer review, which I don't think is addressed. You can do that in the context of homework as well, or in the context of projects where students actually peer review each other. And sort of get on this vertical level of learning where you can then, as an instructor, look at the peer review and see a learning outcome from the peer review rather than the content that is created itself. Then see discussions threads of as well. So that I feel is really, in my view, the most powerful thing.
Yeah. That's kind of what my editing does when they edit each other. They get 1 point if they just add words or an image. If they do paragraphs, it's worth so many points. But if they catch a mistake, misinformation, it's worth more points. So it's to their benefit to try to find something, maybe just a typo or something that somebody interpreted, differently.
But that's still all in the easy edit actual page, right?
Right, yeah. But they still have to think about the accuracy of the information. I didn't want them to go in and just say, oh, here's something good, I'm just going to add it in without really having to read the site. So I wanted to reward them for reading the site and seeing, is it accurate, so, instead of just me. So we kind of hit peer review in that way also.
Along that same line, the question I had was, obviously you have the ability to go back to some prior versions and to see the substantive or nitpicky nature of some of the edits, but you're still assigning individual grades to students. And this isn't the entire part of the class, I realize, and that's another factor. But how do you commented that you have a point system for the quality or the substance of their edit. What about the others of your? And you look at it and you see maybe only 10% of your class contributing in some way, or what? How do you? I don't know. How do you encourage their involvement? And how do you assess it?
I have a rubric. They do get participation points, and I do give them instructions on what they have to do. So they, at a minimum, they have to make 3 postings here or 2 postings here, and then I go in and read in for accuracy. And if they do what's requested, they get X number of points for participating, as long as the information is accurate. But if it's not accurate, or if they've not participated as requested, then they don't get the points. And that's about as far along as I've gotten with it. But
The other thing I
accuracy
do,
is very important.
I don't assume that every group member gets the same points. I grade it, and then they have to, for every group project they do, not just the wiki, they fill out it's called a small group self-reflection form. And in that they say, this is what I learned, this is what I would have done differently, this is how it applies to what I see my profession being. But then it says, who did what? And then I tell them, a group of 3, you have 15 hypothetical points, split your points up among your 3 members. And then that tells me, if somebody contributed more, and they're honest. A lot of times they'll say, I didn't really have time for this. My group members carry the burden of it, and they'll assign themselves half the points of somebody else. That doesn't mean I cut their points in half. I still go look at what they contributed, and I may reduce them a letter grade. Sometimes I've reduced them 2 letter grades because they really did very little in comparison to everybody else. So they have to, kind of rate each other's contribution also.
Yeah, in my class, I just kind of go with a threshold level of participation on the wiki, and I give them some extra points on the test review exam. On the other graduate class where they go to Wikipedia and so forth, I have them do a little reflection paragraph or 2 that talks about their experience, and I kind of incorporate that into a grade, so along with what they put out there. But there's a long way to go with that, I think, still.
Question in regards to the students. There's still a lot of students who are uncomfortable with online technology and such. I was wondering, it seems like you get a lot of student participation with Wiki. Do you find that these students then go on to become better participants during KSA Online and other tools, or do you find that students who are uncomfortable just kind of stay at that low threshold of just doing
I think what I've seen is really 2 groups. There's the ones that already love anything to do with online stuff, and they jump right in and they go crazy with it. There's also the group that's real hesitant and hasn't done much with it before, and a lot of them do become a lot more likely to use the other tools and to get more involved with stuff, and that's kind of what makes me feel good, to see them opening up their universe a little bit. But there's also students who don't want to use it and will complain through email and so forth and say, I don't know why we need to do this, and I don't know. I try to talk to them a little bit and encourage them, but sometimes I don't know. Hopefully they'll get it in another class too. So.
I thought was interesting with Dr. Fees saying she wanted to use the wiki to go where the students are, and I think a lot of professors would say, we assume that they're there, and I know I've heard Mike West comment making this presentation about a year ago, talk about he has to teach them to use the things that we assume the digital natives are already fluent in.
They don't have the, they like, I think, they like the sensory engagement, typing and seeing on the screen, and it's all fun to see that, but they don't have the professionalism that goes with it, I have found. So they need to still learn the professional ethics and the way things are done in this profession, how to cite an APA, and what do you cite, and your responsibility for doing that, and how do you phrase in an appropriate manner that's for a larger audience. You can't just write what you might spit out verbally, You have those kinds of that protocol, the ethics of it, is what they don't know, and that's why I like the invitation only. I can help them. I can mentor them through that process and help them grow as professionals. I'm thinking particularly the undergraduates, but yeah, they like to see it on the screen, but they don't have the rest of it that they need.
Could you compare, this has me even thinking about students' use of online, could you compare some of the things that might be easiest and most convenient to do in K-State Online versus easiest and convenient to do in a wiki? Are there places where you might make some choices about which direction you go?
For me, I have had a dickens of a time working in WIMBA. I can't seem to get it. It's just I can't. The students get in, they get kicked off. I get kicked off. The system goes down. They can't hear me speaking on the microphone. We've just had a number of problems, and so I've stopped using WIMBA, and that was partly the motivation to try the wiki. So I don't have a final evaluation on it yet. I understand that students like to hear the professor's voice, and maybe I need to go to just a more canned presentation on ScreenFlow and put that up rather than trying to engage in a lecture online. I haven't figured that out yet very well. But I have found this to be a nice addition, the wiki, a nice addition to that.
Well, as an on-panel member, the reason I'm interested is we would like to do in our department a lot of collaborative writing. There is no big, say a product involving 3 students, we do a lot of teamwork and things like that, and there's no vehicle for doing that on KSU Online that I'm aware of. So you just can't do something that's free.
I use online for some board of directors meetings and professional groups across the country, and same frustrations that you have, Bronwyn, but it's also been very nice to use if you can get people educated at that level. But for the group writing, this comments about doing shared writing back here, the peer review would be a nice professional platform.
Yeah, one of the things I found out about this shared writing experience is that many international students who typically may not be feeling confident in their writing capabilities use that extensively and find that to be very helpful in fine-tuning their sentence structure and learning things other than what the course content is. And I think everyone comes out a stronger writer because you see your work getting edited. Students even edit what the teachers put out there, and they're especially delighted if they find a typo or something that you may have done. And so it's just kind of a good experience where everybody can kind of help one another become better.
Their reference list has become a very important resource for them. In the clinical class, they do very intensive case studies, and they're penalized if they only use their textbook. They're expected to find a multitude of professional resources. And they used to post on the message board saying, I found a couple. Can somebody else share what you're using? Now they're just going to the wikis, and they're looking at that reference list, and that's what I'm seeing show up as their references in their case studies.
And mine is a specific question about, you mentioned an iTAC wiki last presenter, and then the Confluence wiki was on the O&E domain. Did they both get to use MediaWiki for both of those? Or you offered, you said you're looking for people to participate. And you didn't say the same thing about iTAC, but we're teaching online as well. Which direction? I do not want to go to WebPaint. I want to keep on our servers because of granular permission stuff as you mentioned before. But what direction do we go to? Do we ask either one of you, or is there
well, I know with our Confluence product it's EID authentication, so you don't have to have a separate username and password and create a separate account. So, and it's secure and backed up, and we're really monitoring that system. So, and
That was the right answer. Ours is more of a private. It's on our private server right now, so we just kind of did it as an experiment to see how it went. So hers, I don't really know about her, but it's automatically authenticates with the EID, I'd say.
Yeah, that MediaWiki that we've been using for Elate, that we had to actually get a tech person, Josh Works, who installed it, has served as like a webmaster for us and gotten it on the K-State server. So he's been kind of volunteering his time in bits and pieces to do that, and it will require having someone that's very technically savvy to work with that part of it behind the scenes. So,
was there a cost for it?
Sort of, but we initially had some funding from Continuing Ed to set it up, and then that got used up very quickly, and now it's sort of the contributing factors from the community of users. So.
Do we have a MediaWiki clone for a different system that's called a Screwdriver? Identical, but I think it was free.
Yeah.
Almost free.
Yeah, this was free to.
You wouldn't have to use one on their server. You could actually put it, but it's not very expensive, as I recall. I don't remember how much.
I think you'll find that most Web 2.0 technologies are very cheap, truthfully. I mean, you're looking at most a couple $100.
Yes.
And some are just flat open source. You just got to have the savvy to put it on your server.
Yeah, and I think the hardest part of putting this one on was installing the database along with it and having it up and running and connected in, and that's what Josh Works did for us, and he's a pretty talented guy. So.
Yeah. Go ahead. Okay. I'm just curious now, when you use the wiki in your classroom, you just put it in the threaded discussion board?
Oh no,
you just use it as a digital?
My discussion board is actually what I think is one of the strongest parts of my class. Because I make them moderators. The same group was given a different week that they were a moderator. They have to go find out a professional research article. They have to list questions, and sometimes they give 2 or 3 articles, and then they have to respond all week long and keep the discussion going. And the depth and the detail that they go into, it just astounds me. It's like being at a roundtable session of professional RDs, because I've been amazed at how much I get behind sometimes on topics. And because not only in the discussions are they talking about what's out there currently, they're talking about their personal experiences along with it. And that's what they need to learn as professionals, is you have to listen and respect when somebody disagrees or says, you know, that just sounds bogus, or, you know, it didn't work type thing. So you get personal along with professional discussion, yeah, but the message board is a very strong aspect of the course.
Okay, so it's more like the message board used during the process, more used during the process, but the wiki is kind of as a kind of final product.
But it still changes, yeah, it still evolves. You know, as new things come out, I expect them to catch it and see it and add it in some form.
Probably I shouldn't say the final product, but it's kind of product of the maybe the
Yeah,
discussion.
the fact that they can professionally disagree is more evident on the message board than it is a wiki. You know, if somebody makes an edit or they don't quite like something, it's not really going to come out, whereas on the message board it does. And they disagree frequently. But then when they disagree, they'll go out and find references that back them up. And so then you'll see two research studies saying the opposite thing, and yet they're both valid studies. And so that's a very important part of it.
So actually, the wiki and the message board, they could use them together, kind of a good supplement to.
Right, but they're different topics. The group that might have COPD is not going to have that as their wiki for message board moderators. I don't want them getting too comfortable.
Are you guys still all using K-State Online?
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, Wimba chats and the message board.
I'm pretty happy customer of K-State Online, but I have some issues with it. I really like the function that had students put links up, and everybody can see the reference list or that. I like that function. And another one, it seems like you guys can put up pretty large size videos. I have students actually I produce the video sometimes, from their interviews or whatnot. I teach, communication course stuff. And the problem with the K-State Online is students cannot upload it because they have so much capacity, right? So the capacity so the videos for file Dropbox, I'm into the file Dropbox to do that, but they cannot upload it, so that's the problem. And do you think K-State Online can somehow catch up with the media we can, or so we don't have to go out, out of our way and spend the money and get,
Or put it on YouTube and then link to it. I mean, that's what I told one student to do. She said, "Can I create a video?" I said, "Sure, put it on YouTube, and then link into it." Because for my technological skill, that seemed the easiest.
Well, again, as you have students like shy and private, they don't want to really go into. I'm not I did not join Facebook because I don't want to be there really. So somebody sends me join Facebook, whatever. I already kind of bluntly just decline. I would just not respond, right? So what if students who don't want to be on Facebook or and all that? But again, YouTube is different. Who don't want to be seen by public,
You can get private accounts on YouTube, but yeah.
Because I've been investigating this myself recently.
So
there are some issues with
we
that.
want to protect our students' privacy too,
Yeah.
We have all kinds of students. So when we have K-State Online, somehow get to that level, invest money for them to get to that level, you don't have to get out of the other way. And as we know, professors are not always have to be computer or tech savvy. So help our professors too.
Yeah. They may have a wiki application on there someday. I don't know if that's in the works or not.
I can address a little bit about what you're saying. K-State Online, the development of K-State Online, which is all in-house, takes the things that you're talking about very seriously, and we are looking into trying budgeting for hugely more space in order to accommodate that, because like you're saying, more and more students are creating this content, as well as more and more instructors. And things are going more to video, and then the next step is being HD video, which then gets even bigger. So I would strongly recommend that you send that type of request directly to Scott Finkelbein. And he addresses it, and we've definitely been talking about things like that.
That's pretty good about that, but if it takes a lot of money and more personnel, that's hard to do, right?
It is difficult, but at the same time, you know, since this is all in-house type of stuff, we want to make the best product possible. We are definitely looking into that. So yes, that is being discussed right now.
A couple of you mentioned the fact that and I've discovered, at least with older versions of MediaWiki and competitor products, that if two people have it open at the same time, the first one that gets saved gets it, but the other one doesn't. They think that somebody's gone in and erased it. The fact is somebody just made a punch and then they're editing a page that no longer exists. What other kind of funkiness have you found that you're having to in order to make this work effectively for you? Maybe that's it.
That's the only one I've come across.
Yeah.
The only other thing that popped up is you can ask to be somebody's friend. And so when they would first sign on, they go, "What's this?" And they'd say, you know, and I was getting these requests saying, "So-and-so wants to be your friend." And I'm going, well, okay. Nothing to it. I mean, it means nothing. You know, they're just trying out the different things. And at first, students were emailing saying, should I do this or not? I don't know what it means if I say, yes, I want to be their friend. Am I committing to anything? So, you know, I just had to tell them, you know, it doesn't matter. And then those friend requests quit coming in because they realized it was nothing.
Yeah, and sometimes you get students that maybe post pictures that would be more suited for MySpace than for their, you know, account on your classroom wiki. And so I try to mention to them, you know, just post, you know, reasonably nice pictures out there. Nobody wants to know a lot of personal stuff about you on this website and some things like that, because they will fill out the profiles in great detail, and it amazes me how they have the time to do that.
But they're fun to read.
Yeah, they are.
I mean, you know, one of the questions that's kind of a default, and you can answer it or not, says, you know, if I had a superpower, I mean, my superpower is, and one gal said that I can hear my husband every time he thinks I really can't hear him. And I thought, well, that's kind of funny, you know, and so they do. They post some creative things that, again, help you bond when you're distance students. You need ways to bond.
You know, I think my distance students, though, have not filled out their profiles. My undergrads did, but the distance students did not. And I don't require it, so I haven't looked at it, but I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, it's a bonding method.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah. They do on K-State Online, but not on Wiki.
Yeah, I listed, you know, the last movie I'd watched, and I got a few emails there going, oh, that's so cool. What did you think about such and such? So again, personal interaction when you don't get to see each other in class.
Yeah. One last question. Obviously, there's a lot of interest in Wikis because we get more than 50 people attending a session like this. And I know that the possibility of having central Wiki support was raised at least a year ago for K-State. Does any of the panel know if K-State's looking at something like that? You know, because Wikis are obviously a great tool, and rather than having each department provide their own Wiki and their tech support and everything, whether anyone's looking at that as a K-State central resource? Anybody?
No.
Do you know Ben?
Ben is our...
Yeah, Ben's my go-to person.
I would be asking him. So I don't have an answer. Do you, anybody here have an answer to that?
After our pilot group will help determine if our department would host one.
And maybe a follow-up to that is for everybody that is interested, who could they contact and say, yes, we're interested? Is there a central place? One person, department?
This is really, in some ways, the domain of all me, ultimately. So if you want to email somebody, email Scott
Scott's going to get a load of mail.
I was going to say that, but I wanted someone else to say that. Yes, and we have been talking about it, but again, it's in the talking stages. So, you know, it's a money issue. There's lots of issues associated with it. But yes, definitely email Scott Finkelbein. Tell him that it's going. See what happens.
I know the more demand there is for it, the more likely it is to come to fruition quicker. And Wikis as a whole, other than the fact that they can grow really huge, really quickly, don't have a whole big, huge footprint to themselves. They're fairly easy things to set up. So I would send emails, I really would.
Yeah.
Things will change sooner that way.
Quick comment on that. This is a question here. I think the two medias
never used this technology in a classroom setting. This is all really intriguing to me, but next fall is the first time I'll actually be teaching a course. So, new hire as a classroom. The words, less is more come to mind when starting to incorporate these ideas into the classroom. What, based on your experiences, where, someone like myself, how do you fit, putting in all the these dynamic tools in the classroom setting, but also developing the course for the first time, other related issues. How do you really balance that, or what are some suggestions you might have based on your experiences?
When I first started, Ben spent 15 minutes showing me how to set it up, and then I spent maybe 20 doing the home page, and then the students took off. The time investment after that is in reading their content, and I think it's fun. I do it while I'm sitting in front of the TV at home, and my kids are watching the Disney Channel, which I've outgrown. And so, I'm in the living room with them, but I find it enjoyable, so it's not a burden to read it. And that may be because I'm still actively practicing, and it's kind of like, getting CEUs for free for me. So really the only time commitment for me is just reading their content and following it.
Yeah, and I think part of it is if you're setting up your course right now for the first time, in some ways that's the ideal time to set some of these tools up because you have to do a lot of those things anyways. So if you identify a good way to do it and put a mix of things in your class to keep it interesting to the students, then that's not a bad way to go. I think if you did everything in Wiki or everything in discussion threads, students get kind of bored and lose interest. So.
I'd also like to add to that, there's instructional designers available who could sit with you and talk to you about how to use a wiki and what capacity. There's Ben Ward, there's Shanlin Kaiju who's sitting right in front of you, and there's me, who's Jackie. Contact any one of us and we'll be able to help you with that too, so you're not feeling that you're on this on your own. Can I respond to that also? I've been teaching K-State Online for about 5-6 years now. Ben's help initially, you can't beat his help and the help of the staff, but what I found with technology, in my mind, it's an enhancement, it's not the substitute. And I know some faculty are using it or may want to use it as a substitute for real contact, or I think what you said, real connection. Students really want to be connected, and that's how we retain students, and that's how we recruit students, and that's a big concern with any university. So I use technology, first off, as a way to teach, but most importantly, any enhancement is an enhancement on core.
And if I could add one balance to that, I'm at the other end of the spectrum from you. I've been here 25 years now, and I think one of the things to ask yourself starting out is how well have you communicated with who's ever responsible for your review process? Because they will, we all like the change, we all like the dynamic, but you're going to have a certain expectation here as a young faculty member, and whoever is mentoring you, who's ever responsible for your review process, if they buy in, go for it. But you want to make sure that this doesn't, you're right, it's a good time to set it up, but if it gets perceived as a distraction or if it slows you down, the teaching creativeness is not always the best reward towards the review process as an untenured faculty member. Now, you may be in a situation that's not an issue, but if you're just starting out, you're just getting ready to teach your first course, I would, if you see this as a issue that may get involved, I talk with whoever you're working with just so that the expectations are right. And then a lot of us have been around here long enough, we're tenured, we can play with some of the toys, and we know the prices that it's going to have, and we can make those decisions, and they say go for it, and everyone loves it. But when you're that untenured faculty member, there's a different set of issues that work through on that.
My comment is just, I always start with my list of objectives, what it is I want for students to end with. And if this tool can be helpful in meeting that objective, then I use it. But it's just a tool. It doesn't replace, sometimes it doesn't work for what I want them to be able to do, and I have to do something else. So always, at least for me, I always have to start with what it is that I want students to know by the end of the course or the end of the evening, or what is my objective?
My guess is that for most of you, it's just a minority of your time teaching and interacting with students.
And mine's worth 35 points out of 600.
Yeah, it's worth a small amount in my class as well.
Yeah.
You do have to realize as a tool, it pushes back onto the student. It really sets the expectation that they're responsible for their own learning and they're responsible for producing, and there can be some resistance to that. And you got to kind of be prepared for that up front. And you kind of have to know your students, because some students won't respond well, others will. You just get them close to it and they're running. So kind of keep your audience in mind when you start setting up your wiki and your lessons that revolve around using a wiki.
Just to comment, I'm not a faculty person, but I've been around a while, a few years. And for me, this is about preparing the student for their life when they leave college, even if they stay in academia. We're preparing them to be professionals. You mentioned ethics. Roger mentioned ethics, although he didn't use that word, and I've heard Roger speak before, so I know. You're teaching them to be critical thinkers.
And collaborators.
And collaborators. So, to me, this aspect of it, just for me personally, is absolutely the most important aspect. If these tools can help you prepare your students for their life as citizens and whatever they're going to be doing, then it's probably worth having.
And one thing somebody mentioned earlier, the peer review aspect, and I look at it also a little bit further, in that it allows each student to bring his or her strength to a collaborative project. Some people are going to be good editors, some people are going to be very creative, but can't spell worth a darn. Somebody else is going to be good at syntax or arranging in a logical manner, a series of thoughts. And it allows them to bring those, whatever their particular natural strength is to bear on a particular project. And that was good in recognizing that especially certain students may come with a discomfort with the language, and this gives them an opportunity to learn.
About the student collaborating, co-editing document, and you said it was very helpful to international students and all that. But did you see any evidence or any indication that any of them are not doing, are not participating as actively as they could because they want to be polite, they don't want to.
No, I
didn't see that?
no, I see that they seem to be more active. The international students seem to be more active on the wikis and collaborative documents.
American students or international students, trying to be polite, didn't want to, offend anybody.
Oh, I see what you mean. Like they don't want to edit somebody's good
Right.
work. I haven't really looked at that too closely, but it seems like most people are happy to edit each other's work.
I was just curious, on a Monday around noontime, I said these 5 are available for edits. Within 24 hours, there were 50 different edits. So
That's been my experience. There's been just lots of
Across
edits.
the board, everybody.
Everybody on everybody. It's just, yeah.
So they know they're being graded on it.
right,
Yeah.
And they wanted, I think some of them wanted to jump in early before they couldn't find anything to edit.
Yeah.
I don't think final product was really satisfactory to me.
There's still changes. You get, with web paint, you get a weekly email saying the summary of activities, but then you can go in any day and get a summary. And now I've gotten to where, I used to check about every day, and now I kind of read the weekly update. And then I click on it and see, what they've added. It's fun. Although one cartoon I didn't find quite funny. It was kind of a Far Side cartoon. It's not my type of humor, but it wasn't offensive, so I left it.
Anyway, it's so really distance format, students don't hesitate attacking or correcting whatever. But in in-person classes, they know they are going to face them in
That's
class.
true.
Right.
Because that's very hard.
Yeah.
I was wondering about it. Everybody's hesitating.
They seem to still edit, though, I
Yeah.
think.
I think that's something too. I'm seeing attractive on the course. I have a lot of international students, and I really had to sit down with a couple of them and tell them that they're why. Peer reviews about criticism.
Yeah.
Show them how to be more negative. They all want to.
be able to see those countries, they can be negative.
And when they do case studies together, I've actually had to go the other way, saying you were way too rude when you were working, because they'll say, would you please read this email and tell me, was I being too sensitive? And then I have to write them back and say, as professionals, you have to learn to provide critique while maintaining a working environment. And this was not a good working environment, And so I've had to steer them the other direction, because I said, you don't have to go home and eat supper with these people, but you still have to treat them with respect, so. That happens every semester. There's at least one or two people just way too rude.
Guys, a couple of questions. I think I'd like to say thank you to our expert